Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Wolbe-Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 244, the Nikola Topic episode, as the young Serbian guard currently wears number 44 as a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team we're going to start out talking about here tonight as we go through the round 1 series in the NBA playoffs this season. Because, fellas, I thought it'd be fun if we went from the least interesting series to the most interesting series. And we might have to debate a few of those in the order that I picked those in, but I think there's no doubt that the least interesting series so far this playoffs has been the Thunder and Suns series, where the Thunder hold a commanding 3-0 series lead over Phoenix after SGA had an insane performance in Game 3 on the road, scoring 42 points on 15-18 shooting on the night. And they have a chance to put the series to bed here as of taping on Monday night. So, Bruce, my thoughts with you. Would you agree, first off, with the fact that of all the series that we have going on in the NBA right now, this one might put you to sleep?
This series has provided zero excitement for me, and I'm sure many of our listeners, and obviously you, feel the same way. I never predict sweeps before a series, but it's hard to imagine the Suns staying alive on Monday night. I mean, Phoenix has had a very successful season, and even if they're swept by OKC, that doesn't take away from the progress they've made. They were my worst preseason prediction, as I felt they'd be awful this season, but they proved me wrong. But look, OKC, defending champions, 64-win team, they've surgically dismantled the Suns so far. Watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander methodically do what he always does has been boringly efficient. Back in the San Antonio Spurs heyday, many fans called them boring, which was because their superstar, Tim Duncan, was like a metronome. Timmy would get buckets, boards, and blocks and make it look so easy, no on-court emotion, just, going about his business. And SGA's like that too. I simply cannot wait to see if OKC and the Spurs match up in the Western Finals. OKC's going to get the Lakers-Rockets winner in round 2. And if the Spurs finish off the Blazers, they'll get either Denver or Minnesota. So that's what they have to do to reach that Western Finals showdown, which will be exciting.
Absolutely. Will be.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the Thunder. They look like this looks like a 1/16 matchup in the NCAA tournament. It's just played out like that. It just hasn't been very, as you mentioned, very exciting. I mean, the Thunder are looking like the team we thought they were going to be at the start of the year when they started 24-1. We thought this was the kind of team they, entering Monday, they had the second most efficient offense and the second most efficient defense. That's a pretty good recipe for success there. The Suns had the most improved defense in the league from a year ago to this season. It was really impressive. They went from bottom 5 to top 10, really good performance. But their offense, even though it was improved, was still a problem for them. And you got to be able to score if you're going to have any shot against Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City obviously shut them down. Game 3 was really impressive to me. The energy that the Thunder showed up with on the road in a game that, it looked like they pretty much, you knew after 2 games that they had command of this series. And they really acted like a team that wanted to sweep them in 3 games, let alone 4. So the energy by Oklahoma City was impressive. It's really been about the most impressive part of this series, though.
Yeah, and I think OKC understands the importance of getting through this one in the minimum of 4 games, especially, Bruce, as you alluded to, the San Antonio Spurs more than likely will be waiting for them in the Western Conference Finals, and we know that's going to be an absolute dogfight. So they got to have a bunch of energy for that series. Everyone's got to be well-rested and healthy and ready to go for what's to come. Now, for the Suns, I'm glad you mentioned this too, Bruce. I've clowned the Suns here recently, just given Dillon Brooks' antics, and I'm sure he'll have some here tonight. But this has been a year that they've taken a step in the right direction. A lot of credit should go to the Phoenix Suns. This is really good experience for a young team. A lot of guys stepped up this year, Colin Gillespie being one of them. Dylan Brooks, in his own right, stepped up quite a bit this year and, has become one of the faces of the Suns as far as setting the tone with the mentality that has worked for this group. So either way, even with a 4-0 sweep, this is a step in the right direction for a young Phoenix team that's only or should only get better at the very least next season. So credit to them there.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned the young team, Ross, young Sun team. Absolutely correct. But, at some point they can't just develop and grow when you have Booker on your team, Devin Booker on your team. He's your best player. He's an all-star. And I'm not saying they wasted this season, whatever, but you're wasting his prime years developing and growing. Hopefully they can figure out a way to turn around. I know they brought in Kevin Durant last season in an effort to try and compete, and it obviously became a train wreck. But you really hope they can do something in the offseason. I totally agree with you. I mentioned how they were the most improved team defensively, and they obviously surprised a lot of people getting here. Just don't want to have that development be a 3 or 4 season thing and waste Devin Booker's best chance at really making a run in the playoffs. He's a really good player, obviously an Olympian.
Yeah, I just don't know what else they can bring in, given that they have no draft capital and already have a lot of money on the books. They got their hands
totally
tied here. So, and to kind of round up this series again, obviously I started talking about how insane SGA was in Game 3. Only 3 players in NBA history have gone 15 of 18 shooting in a playoff game. That is Sam Jones in 1967, Michael Jordan in 1991, and SGA on Saturday. So quite the group there. Hats off to SGA. Now, believe it or not, let's stay out west for the second least important, or not important, least entertaining series thus far. And I truly think it's, round 1 series between the Lakers and the Rockets, with LA leading the series 3-1 over Houston. And my question for you, Bruce, right out of the gates here, what in the world's going on with KD? No one knew about this injury before the start of the playoffs, before Game 1. And then our own friend of the show, Dave McMenamin, has come out on ESPN and said for most of the series, half his teammates didn't know where he was. There was no real update. He wasn't even with the team until Game 4. It was the first time we saw him on the bench. So what in the world's going on in Houston?
I mean, I really don't know. But when you hear something like what Dave is saying, you have to wonder, is there a problem between KD and the coach? Because you have to assume that he gets along okay with his teammates, right? Mm-hmm. And Ime Udoka has been known to be a bit abrasive, at times. Certainly, a lot of people consider him to be almost a fake tough guy, although I thought he did a good job coaching Boston. But look, with KG, a no-show for the most part. It's been left to LeBron James to basically dominate this series. Look, in the first 3 games, he looked like 2016 LeBron. When they took a 3-0 lead, he averaged close to a triple-double, 25 points, almost 10 rebounds, and almost 9 assists, playing almost 41 minutes a game, oh, by the way, matching his age of 41. He did receive a lot of help with Marcus Smart, one of my all-time favorites, Deandre Ayton, Luke Kennard, and Rui Hachimura helping to make up for the loss of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. And look, Game 4 on Sunday, that was always going to be a litmus test of the Rockets, and their level of pride. Couldn't be swept at home by a Luka-less, Reeves-less Lakers team. Yeah. And again, even without KD, being swept at home would have been incredibly humiliating. So, Houston got a really nice game out of Alpy Sengun and Amen Thompson, Tyrese, and Jabari Smith. They basically locked that game up after 3 quarters and just cruised home. So here's the thing about Ayton, all right? We have bashed this guy relentlessly over his career, but he had played pretty well until that elbow on Sengun in Game 4. Now, I think that's going to give Houston some extra juice in Game 5. I don't think they're going to forget about that, No. That was a cheap shot. It was a flagrant 2 and an ejection. And, if Steven Adams were playing right about now, Ayton would have to keep his head on a swivel next time he went out there. But look, someone else on the Rockets may decide that they're going to say hello to him in the next game. We'll see what happens there. He has been playing well. but he still found a way to potentially hurt his team moving forward. So don't be shocked if the refs are going to be watching him a little extra closely on Wednesday. And look, who knows? Maybe we'll see Reeves and Durant on the court really soon too.
Yep. World B, what's your pulse here on this series?
Well, I had this rated a lot higher than you did. It's simply, even though it was it's a 3-1 series, even though it was at 1.30, just because of the surprise. Nobody, I predicted it would sweep the other way because I couldn't foresee how LeBron could do it on his own here, and then he goes and doesn't do it on his own. He has a lot of help, but he's the main man in this series. It's an incredible thing to see. Add in a steal and a half per game to the numbers that Bruce mentioned. It's really been impressive. Not to mention the game-tying three-pointer he had when the Rockets had a massive meltdown. I'll say this for the Lakers now: don't lose this Game 5 coming up at home. Don't lose this game now, because then you go back to Houston for Game 6. We don't know when Kevin Durant's going to get on the court here. We don't know anything about Kevin Durant and his injury history, as it turns out. So don't let this game continue. You want to finish it, you finish it in LA and get your rest or whatever. But Bruce mentioned the other guys supporting LeBron. The next three scorers in this series for the Lakers behind LeBron, Kennard, Smart, and Hachimura, combined are shooting almost 50% from three, 47%. I mean, you're really going to be a tough team to beat if your upper guys, in this series, with Reeves and Luka out, if your other upper guys are shooting that well. We know Kennard can shoot it like that, but these other guys, it's really going to be tough for teams to beat the Lakers going forward when you have that kind of production from other guys. So, Houston shoots almost 50% in Game 4. You got to hope that for their sake they can get it going and get on the road, get a win on the road, and bring this back to Houston, because then the series gets interesting.
Yeah, and I think Game 5 should be interesting as well, because Austin Reeves was questionable heading into Game 4 on Sunday, and he ended up sitting out of this one. I think we can almost fully expect him to come back and be available on his home court for Game 5 to try to close this one out at home. This is a must-win game for the Lakers to obviously continue to hold that leverage and put the pressure on the Rockets. So, according to reports, Luka has not made any progress in terms of any on the court work thus far. So he still seems like he'll be out all of next round should they advance.
Wow.
But to get Reeves back would be a huge plus for this team. They really need his scoring and just his X factor ability to take over moments and stretches when LeBron needs a breather. So keep an eye on that. Now, one other thing I want to talk about on this series, Bruce, I'll start with you because I know Ime Udoka is someone you're familiar with being a Celtic fan, but I haven't really loved the way he's handled the adversity of this series. I know he's, of course, beyond frustrated with Durant being out on top of everything else Houston has endured, at least injury-wise, so far this season. I mean, Fred VanVleet's been out. He loses Steven Adams midway through the season. But I feel like he pretty much threw Reed Shepherd under the bus after Game 3 in his big-time turnover. I mean, he said, quote, horrendous mistakes. I don't know if you want to say youth or scared of the moment. Now, do you just take that as Ime trying to fire his team up and challenge the younger players like a Reed Shepherd, or is that him just kind of like trash talking his own guys?
I think it's that. I mean, I think he's basically trying to say, hey, man, don't blame me. I can't go out there and take the shots. I can't make the passes. To me, that was a really kind of lame move by him.
Yeah.
I don't think he had great intentions in his way of doing things with that move.
Yeah, I feel like you got to uplift your group, especially in these type of times of adversity where they're kind of going through some stuff here. But keep an eye on Houston, because should they lose this series in Game 5, I think the Giannis situation with the Houston Rockets gets quite interesting, because this would be a failed season. I don't know what happens with Durant, but you'd have to think they'd be on the Giannis radar. Should this just fall completely on its face this year. They've got the assets. They've got the draft capital, the young talent. Why not just go all in? Because at this point in time, I don't think this is a group they want to run it back with come next season. So keep an eye on that. Now, moving on, let's get to the Celtics-Sixers series, Bruce, because the Celtics have a firm 3-1 series lead over Philly. BJ, Edgecombe, and company stole game 2 on the road, but your Celtics responded quite well on the road this weekend, despite Joel Embiid making his return to the court and playing well.
When I heard that Embiid was playing on Sunday in Game 4, I was really happy for him, happy to see him back on the court, but I didn't really see any great benefit to Philly before the game. It wasn't like, oh no, Embiid's back. To me, it was like, okay, he put up numbers, he did what he could, but I felt the team was trying too hard to get him going to the detriment of Tyrese, Maxey, and Edgecombe. I'll give those young dudes credit for trying to get Embiid lots of touches, but I'm giving Nick Nurse major demerits because Philly looked totally disorganized for most of the game. I felt Maxey was the most negatively impacted by Embiid's return. Here's some numbers that kind of bear that out, I believe. Tyrese averaged 26 field goal attempts per game in the first 3 games, but he only had 14 on Sunday, all right? Edgecombe averaged almost 18 shots in the first 3 games. He only took 9 on Sunday. And even Kelly Oubre looked totally out of it. He took 12 shots per game in the first 3, but he only took 6 on Sunday, and he made 0 field goals on his way to a 2-point disaster in 31 minutes. Now, I don't really blame Nurse for trying to use Embiid, but the Sixers are going to have a much better chance in Game 5 if he sits. Embiid tried. He has nothing to apologize for. He's always tried to play through injuries, which I really respect. But this is Maxey's team now, okay? And I think it's time that they recognize that. As for Boston, they had their wake-up call in Game 2. Then they went into Philly and did what great teams are supposed to do. They won a tight Game 3 and then blew the Sixers away in Game 4. Peyton Pritchard demolished Philly with 32 points, one dagger after another. You know, it's funny. When he was a younger player, I kind of thought of him as a kind of poor man's T.J. McConnell because of his scrappiness. Well, now he's added a dash of Tony Parker to his toolkits, the way he's an extremely dangerous paint scorer who's not afraid to challenge any defender below the free throw line. He's now my number 3 most crafty player in the league, trailing only Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Brunson of the Knicks. Pritchard is number 3, and that's saying something because those 2 guys are all-stars and MVP candidates.
Yeah, it's a strong list there. I like that. World B, what's your thoughts?
This was the second least interesting series for me.
Okay.
There was no, I mean, there was no way I, expected anything but a Celtics domination. The fact that they lost Game 2 was a shocker, but the Celtics are a kind of team that can bounce back from situations like this, and they did. I mean, you saw the Celtics at their best offensively with 24 threes in Game 4, playoff record, for them. Outscored the Sixers 72-48 in the second half of that game. It was just really an embarrassing performance by Philadelphia when they had a chance to just claw their way. I mean, you look at that team. Here's Paul George and Tyrese Maxey having good series, shooting the ball, 47% combined from three-point range. The rest of the team is barely making over a quarter of their threes. It's just a 26%. You're not going to win anything that way. You're just not when you're going up against a team like Boston. You have to be able to make some shots. And the Sixers are shooting 43% for the series from the field. It's just not going to get it done. And, this series should probably take one more game and, moving on, see if Boston faces Knicks or Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this one was a little bit interesting because Game 4 definitely went exactly how we expected it would go. With the Celtics, Peyton Pritchard, big night off the bench, scoring a team-high 32 points. Jason Tatum leading the team in assists with 11, all while Embiid returns. And he put up a respectable 26, 10, and 6. And the Sixers still lost this game by 32 points on their home floor. I mean, that's a pretty crazy equation there. I would not have thought they would have lost that game by 32 points. But this series is over, and I think we can definitely move on to the next series, which is back on the west side of the bracket here as we go to the Spurs and Blazers, with the Spurs leading the Blazers 3-1 in the best-of-7 matchup. San Antonio's young guns and backcourt of the future, Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, led the way in Game 3 with their team on the road without Wemby. And then on Sunday afternoon, Wemby was back like he really never left, dealing with the concussion protocol that he was dealing with. He still came back, put up 27 points, 12 boards, 4 steals, and just 7 blocks too. Throw that in there. a stat line that only Hakeem Olajuwon has done in a playoff game. So despite the Blazers' best efforts, this one looks to be over, World B.
Yeah, it was. You go down, you're down by 17 at the half, and you win by 21. That's an unbelievable turnaround. That's incredible. That if you saw that in the regular season, you would shake your head at anybody that would do that. So that was a really incredible swing, 38 points like that. You mentioned Wemby. You just he put up the numbers. It's getting to the point where you take it for granted almost, which is it's kind of sad that he's that good that you look at those numbers. It's kind of like Joker putting up triple doubles. It's just kind of expected almost. It's the last two games getting outscored the Blazers by 58 points, 56 points combined in the second half. And you just, they had a chance. They were up 17 at the half, a chance to even this series and make it 2-2 and at least, create a buzz in this series, but there's really not much of it left after that one. Portland's shooting just 35% from the field in the second half. The last two games, not going to get it done at any level. The whole part, the most interesting part of the series has really been the attention of the Portland owner and how he does everything on the cheap. That's been a storyline. It seems like every day. Yeah. I mean, that seems like a big deal more than what's going on in the court. So you mentioned about the Thunder moving on and heading towards that matchup. We want to see the Spurs look like a team that's going to be following their path, similar path, I should say.
Bruce?
Things got pretty spicy near the end of that game 4 when Stephon Castle scored on Denny Avdia, who fouled him, and Castle then stuck the ball into Avdia's chest, and Avdia didn't appreciate it. He reacted with some pushing. There was some back and forth, double technicals, but Castle, it appeared, instigated that, although he was maybe reacting to what he thought was a hard foul. I mean, look, but by that point, the Spurs had taken control of the game. As Worldby mentioned, they trailed at the half by 17 points, and then they hit Portland with a 73-35 second half, okay? 73-35. Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, Castle, they led the way. This one's going to be a 5-gamer when it resumes Tuesday night. This series kind of resembles the Sixers-Celtics series, although this one, I believe, is slightly more competitive. There's a little bit more spice on this one. Because since Portland stole Game 2 in San Antonio, the Spurs responded like the Celtics did, winning 2 straight on the road, setting the stage for a gentleman's sweep, although there wasn't a lot of gentlemanly behavior in that last game. And I think that second half blitz by Sunday by the Spurs pretty much broke the will of Portland. Yeah. I mean, they're going to go quietly in Game 5. I don't think that's going to be a close game.
No, I think this one is all but over. But going back to El Cheapo here, just wondering with you guys, like, if we got offered the job, would you guys come with me to coach the team? I mean, I'll take Scoot under my wing for development. Bruce, you've got our boy Denny Advia, and World B, we'll let you teach Jeremy Grant about a thing or two about efficiency. How's that sound?
I don't know if I'm going to be all right with that, because he's telling the players they got to check out of the hotel at checkout time, which is at noon, right? So if you've got a game at 7 o'clock and you're checking out of the hotel at noon, all I can say is WTF. That's all.
They got free Wi-Fi at Starbucks. Just go ahead and hang out there for a little bit, and we'll have the team bus swing by and pick you up for the game. World B, any thoughts? Are you on board? Are you going to join the coaching staff?
No. I'll find where I am.
Wow.
I'll be rooting for you. I'll be your number one fan. I'll wear the jersey. I'll wear the hat. I'll shake the pom poms if you want, but I don't think I want to work for a guy that would not only not care to be cheap. He boasts about it, talks about some sort of winning formula for him and his other teams he owns. So it's really it's not a good look at the moment. I feel it's been a long season for Portland from the start, and it's not. They were a really pleasant surprise to make the postseason, but it's just been a long season.
Hey, Ross, World B's holding out for the West Virginia job. Portland NBA, Portland NBA has is of no interest to him. He wants to go back to Morgantown.
Well, it is almost heaven after all.
He's looking for that NIL money, that's for sure. That's where it's really
It's worth more. It's a better deal.
All right, we're getting off track, and that's definitely my fault. So let's move on to the next series here. Despite the drama in this next one, how can we not rank and talk about the Nuggets Wolves next up? As Minnesota is up 3-1, all while Anthony Edwards has been a shell of himself before now, unfortunately, being out for a couple weeks. And then, he's suffered that bone bruise, and then Donte DiVincenzo, and it kills me to even talk about it. Hate to see it for any player come playoff time, but a torn right Achilles tendon. So they're in a very interesting position, Bruce, because I know a few Minnesota Timberwolves fans that, have talked to me throughout this series. And while they should be excited to be up 3-1 on the Joker, it's like we're still excited, but what's the upside now without Anthony Edwards and Donte DiVincenzo moving forward?
Well, in a series with superstars like Nikola Jokic and before he got hurt, Anthony Edwards on the floor, leave it to a role player like Ayo Dosunmu to be the catalyst for the Minnesota Timberwolves as they took a 3-1 series lead into Monday night's Game 5 in Denver. When Donte went down with the Achilles injury in Game 4, Dosunmu exploded off the bench for 43 points. And the Wolves' defense has held the high-scoring Nuggets to just 38% shooting, 21% from downtown in that 112-96 win. It was the second straight game the Nuggets were held under 100 points. And, they were only held under 100 points twice during the 82-game regular season. They've now been held under 100 points twice in this series, okay? Denver's going to be a huge favorite in Game 5 with Edwards missing the game along with DiVincenzo. And the game is scheduled to start after we finish taping this show on Monday night. But I expect Denver to play with the desperation of a proud team that won't go quietly. And if the Nuggets can take Game 5 and force Game 6 in Minnesota, the absence of Edwards could end up being pivotal as Denver hopes to get this to a Game 7 at home on Saturday. But, maybe Ayo Dosunmu might have something to say about that.
Yeah, another great trade by the Chicago Bulls. Moving on from them. World B, what's your thoughts on this series?
I actually had this as my third most interesting series simply because despite it being a 3-1 series lead, which was a surprise in and of itself with the Nuggets, viewed by so many as contenders again, for championship. The fact I'm really interested, can Minnesota get to the finish line with those, two starting guards out of the lineup? It's really incredible. A 3-1 series lead. I agree with you, Ross. I really, those Achilles injuries, really, they're tough to watch. You just see, That's why you see these guys missing out with calf injuries for weeks at a time because that's what ends up, you don't take care of that. You come back too soon, and that leads to what we saw Donte DiVincenzo have in the Game 4. So it's really I feel really bad about that, but it's just, can the Timberwolves somehow get to the finish line and close this series out with, without their starting backcourt? Their defense, we forget about. Minnesota's had one of the better defenses over the last few years, and they had it again. As Bruce mentioned, they're absolutely shutting down the Nuggets, the most efficient offense in the league. And they're just absolutely doing the number. You think about Joker and Jamal Murray, 49% of their scoring is coming from them, but they're combined, they're both under 40% from the field, and they're 14 of 61 combined from three. And there's your two top scorers. I mean, nobody else is stepping up the way guys from Minnesota have, as Bruce mentioned. Dosunmu he's the only guy averaging 20 points from Minnesota. He's shooting 53% on threes. The rest of the team is 31%. So he's just, it's just an incredible. I mean, they're up 3-1, and Julius Randle and Jay McDaniels are 3 for 22 combined on threes. It's just an incredible job by Minnesota's defense to keep the score down and give them enough opportunities just to score enough to pull these games out. And, incredible performance in the second half to shut Denver down to 42 points and a half in the second half in a game they desperately needed. They wanted to get this to 2-2, and they saw the injuries happen in front of them. 9 field goals for Denver, in the second half of Game 4 when you need a big half to tie the game. That was it's either really anemic offense by Denver, which we never would have expected, or just incredible defense by Minnesota. I tend to think it's the latter more than the former.
Yeah, I would be shocked if the Minnesota Timberwolves cannot finish off the Denver Nuggets at this point, even despite the fact that they're down at the guard position. I think that they have their number this year here in this playoff series. And I mean, there's still a job to do, but I think they can get it done. I don't see Denver coming back and winning this series after the hole that they've dug themselves in here. So should be an interesting finish, though, because it's not going to be easy. And then I think this would be better off for Spurs fans or those that want to see that Western Conference Finals matchup. Minnesota advances, the Spurs play, a banged up Wolves team. Kind of sets us up for an OKC San Antonio Western Conference Finals matchup, most likely. Now, moving on, we've got the Raptors and Cavs. So I'm believing, World B, that you would have had this lower on your list. But Raptors Cavs all of a sudden is deadlocked at 2 games apiece after Toronto defended their home court and home country, winning both games 3 and 4 in Toronto. And what really impressed me is how they came up victorious in 2 very different games, winning Game 3, 126-104. And then they also won Game 4, which was 93-89 on Sunday afternoon. So, Bruce, what's your thoughts on this series now that it's tied up?
I still like Cleveland to win it. I mean, it's been a home court series, and they have 2 of the final 3 if it goes 7 games at home. They also have Spider Mitchell, who is the one player in this series that I believe can go nuclear late in a game and drive his team to a win. That said, he shot just 6 out of 24 from the floor on Sunday, but he's going to keep shooting. Brandon Ingram hit some key shots finally in Game 4, but Scotty Barnes is Toronto's stud. I mean, Ingram is shooting 34% in the series, and he was just 6 for 23 on Sunday. But, it's good to see him taking more shots. We'll see if he can, stay aggressive on the road in Cleveland. Barnes went strong to the hole time after time, scored 23 with 9 boards and 6 dimes. He played almost 42 minutes on Sunday. Now, Cleveland needs some good work from Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. They only combined for 11 points on Sunday, although Allen did have 15 rebounds, Mobley had 9. Both are going to be much better at home in Game 5. It would be nice to see if James Harden has one of those games on Wednesday in Game 5. He hasn't exactly been a playoff stud over the years. So whether he sparks the team to a win or throws up another postseason stinker, I'll be watching him closely in Game 5. But as I said, I like Cleveland to find a way to win this series still.
All right, World B.
Yeah, this was going to be my least interesting series before Toronto decided to defend their home court the way they basically pulled out their 2 games in Toronto using a couple of runs. They closed out Game 4 with a 17-4 run to finish off that game, and then they had a really impressive 49-23 run in the Game 3 in the second half, spanning the third and fourth quarters there. I mean, at one point they scored on 19 consecutive possessions in Game 3 in the second half. That's a ridiculous. It's not losing if you score every damn. Put on display there in Toronto in those 2 series, those 2 games was really impressive. They held the Cavaliers, who finally had the last 4 months had the Cavalier type of offense, held them under 100 points per game on average in those 2 games. Mitchell, Mobley, Harden combined 35% from the field in the 2 games at home. 2 games in Toronto. Cleveland, 2 different teams offensively. 54% shooting at home in the first 2 games, and 40% from 3. And they go up to Toronto, and they're shooting 41% from the field and 28% from 3. So if it's you do play better at home, you play better on the road, you play worse on the road, then obviously Cleveland has the advantage with the extra home game. Let's see if Toronto can bring that defense, carry that defense to Cleveland, and see what they can do in Game 5. They have enough players, as Bruce mentioned, enough personnel to pull out they'll pull out a victory on the road. They just, haven't looked nearly as impressive defensively in Cleveland as they did at home.
Yeah, and I think if Toronto's going to win a game this series on the road, it's going to be Game 5. They've got all the momentum on a 2-game win streak here. This is the one that they need to take, because if they lose this one, I think this one decides the series. If Toronto wins, I think Toronto wins the series. If they can win Game 5, but if Cleveland wins Game 5, I think it's all but done for the Toronto Raptors. Now, one thing I want to note on this series is, don't get me wrong, Scotty Barnes is having a solid first-round series. He is a great player, someone I would want on my team. But Coach Darko of the Raptors continues to entertain us all with his remarks on the Raptors' young star, because just 2 years ago, Darko claimed that one day Scotty Barnes would be the face of the league. And now after Game 4, Darko stated that Scotty is only 60% of the player he's going to be in 2 to 3 years. So I don't know about you guys, but is Darko expecting Scotty Barnes to be like the next Magic Johnson? Because 60%, I feel like he's had like probably 90% of what he could be.
That almost sounds like, you asked about Udoka before and whether he was trying to light a fire under Reed Shepherd. That sounds like Darko trying to light a little fire under Scotty Barnes. I mean, Scotty Barnes is, I'll take Scotty Barnes on my team. Thank you very much. I mean, he's really good. I mean, he's their best player.
Yeah, I think the reference could be for Barnes's perimeter shooting. If Scotty Barnes, goes from 31% away, he was one of the worst shooters in the league from the perimeter this season, by the way. I think it was like 187th out of 191 players in three-point percentage, like a minimum of 200 shots. So he was way down near the bottom. If he gets it up to 35%, now you've covered a lot of that 60%, where that remaining 40% to get you among the elite. It's really what's keeping him back from being a really borderline superstar player, because he's got the all-around numbers. And by the way, for his size, he plus a ton of shots for his size. So he's got the potential. I agree with the coach, Darko. He's got the potential to be an elite all-NBA type player. He's got to shoot a little bit better from the perimeter, though.
Yeah. Now, of course, with Scotty Barnes in the Raptors in Cleveland here for Game 5, the Cavs certainly have a lot on the line, and they currently have their hands full with the young Raptors group. And I think it's safe to say that your Knicks find themselves in a similar position here. There's a lot on the line for New York, and the Hawks have more than held their own so far in this series, all tied up 2-2. What's your thoughts heading into Game 5 here?
As a Knicks fan, I was very impressed with their performance in Game 4. They came out really aggressive at both ends of the court, and I don't know if the Hawks weren't expecting it or they just couldn't match it, but they really took Atlanta out of the game in their own building. It was really one of the more impressive performances, certainly the most impressive performance by them in this series. And they retook, they got the advantage back. OG Anunoby has really been, I know Karl-Anthony Towns had a triple-double, and I love seeing that from him because I think he's just grossly underutilized by the Knicks offensively. But OG's been the star of the series so far. I mean, he's 20 points, almost 21 points a game, almost 9 rebounds a game. He's shooting lights out all over the place. Great perimeter. He's got the most corner threes in the playoffs so far. That's his MO there. He's a lockdown defender. I mean, when they put him on Jalen Johnson the last couple of games, it's really made a difference. And Josh Hart putting him on CJ McCollum the last few games has really shut down McCollum. So it's been really, they stepped up the defense. They had one of the best defenses in the league over the last 4 months of the season, top 2 or 3 in the league efficiency wise. And they really stepped it up. They heard the chatter. In New York, you lose a game and the sky is falling in the playoffs. And they heard it and they responded. So it was an impressive performance. Now you got to do, as we talked about, you got the advantage back. Can they keep a hold of it? Because, the Hawks are an impressive team. They were one of the most impressive teams after January. They made all the deals we talked about. They had one of the best records in the league and one of the best all-around teams. They have enough veteran guys. Jalen Johnson, I think we all know, it's got to step up
Yes.
and have a big game here. Just hasn't. His scoring's been okay, but his shooting's been atrocious. He's got to step up and have a big game, help out McCollum. And so it's right now. I'm much more comfortable than I was before Game 4 began. Put it that way.
Now, World B, you mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns having a triple-double last game. That was actually his first career playoff triple-double, and he became the fourth Knick in franchise history to record a triple-double in a playoff game. So I'm wondering if you could name the other three Knicks for us.
Well, I want to say Jalen Brunson might be one of them, but I'm not sure that one. No, I couldn't name all the other guys that have them.
Walt Frazier, Dick McGuire, and Josh Hart are the three Knicks that have a triple-double in the playoffs.
I wouldn't have gotten Mr. McGuire, but I given enough time, I would have gotten the others.
All right.
Dick McGuire,
Bruce, what's your thoughts
on a lot of it?
Yeah. Bruce, what's your thought on this interesting series that it's all tied up?
It's been the second most entertaining first round series, along, with a close second to the series that we're going to talk about next, the Orlando-Detroit series. I had said going into this series that Karl-Anthony Towns had to be New York's best player in the postseason if the Knicks planned on going to the NBA Finals. And on Saturday, as we've discussed, Cat was sensational. He played a near-perfect game with that 20-10-10 triple-double. And it wasn't just the numbers. He made a ton of great passes, oftentimes to a cutting OG Anunoby for layups. Cat's reads were totally on point. He spent more time closer to the hoop, only attempting 2 3-pointers, of which he made one, and basically dominating the inside with some of the best body language I've seen out of that guy in a long time. So if that Cat shows up for games 5 and 6, Atlanta's not going to win another game. This thing's going to end in 6. But will he? I mean, Jalen Brunson kind of needs to check his own ego a little bit at the door and empower Cat to make those plays that he was making in Game 4. Brunson can still be New York's second best player. He can score and he can make plays for other guys, but he needs to keep gassing up Cat. And if he does that, New York's going to be better as a team. As for Atlanta, they're going to go as far as C.J. McCollum takes them. He was a very rude visitor at MSG the first 2 games, scoring 58 points on 55% shooting, and the Hawks are going to need one of those games on Tuesday if they expect to win. Jalen Johnson, as Worldby pointed out, and you as well, Ross, could also use a bounce-back game after going just 4 for 12 shooting in Game 4. And look, you mentioned that OG's spent a lot of time guarding Johnson, but Josh Hart's also been harassing him quite a bit, and his physical play on defense against both Johnson and McCollum has been a huge key for Mike Brown, and I totally expect him to show up with that on Game 5. Josh Hart is a heart and soul kind of guy on that team. He's one of the emotional engines on that team, and I think that again, if he does his thing and Cat has anything close to that 20-10-10 game, Atlanta's in big trouble.
I see what you did there, Bruce, with the heart and soul for Josh Hart. Nicely
Not
done.
Intentionally, but it happens to be true.
All right. Well, last but certainly not least, finally, there's no series that gets any spicier than the Pistons Magic matchup, as Orlando, as the 8th seed, currently holds a 2-1 series lead over a Detroit team that finished with the 3rd best record in all of basketball this season. This would be quite an upset, World B. And as of taping here on Monday, the Magic cling on to an 85-80 lead here midway through the 4th quarter in Game 4 in Orlando. So just what's your thoughts, just overall picture of this series thus far? And do you think Orlando's for real? Could they close this one out and then defeat the Pistons?
They're playing the kind of defense that we saw the last couple of years out of them. They didn't have that defensive presence like they normally did this season for the most part. And you're seeing it in this series. It's really impressive. They've taken the shots from Detroit. Detroit trying to be that physical team. I think we all agree they're probably the most physical, most intimidating type of team we have in the league. And they're not backing down. Orlando's not. And their defense has stepped up. I mean, consider that during the regular season, Detroit did not have a streak of 3 games all season in which they scored 105 points or less. Well, entering Monday, they scored 105 points or less in all 3 games of this series. So Orlando's really done the job. I mean, Orlando still can't shoot the ball. It's incredible how bad they are. We watch them on Monday. It's just a train wreck when they shoot the ball from the perimeter. You know, it's a horror movie. And 41% entering Monday from the field overall. But, you know, they did make 15 threes in game 3 to pull that game away. Banchero looks like, you know, the guy we expected to be every night. My favorite player in this series has been Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, for the center for Orlando, he's been all over the place. He's been guarding guys. He stood up to every physical challenge by Isaiah Stewart, by Jalen Duren, who, by the way, please, if you're Detroit, get him some shots. I talked about how Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't get enough shots. Jalen Duren's an all-star, and in game 4 at the half, he had 4 shots. He had fewer shots than Duncan Robinson for the series. That just can't happen if you want to win. I've been very impressed with Orlando. This is the kind of team we thought was going to be the kind of team we thought we were going to see from Orlando all season. We just hadn't seen it. Little spurts here and there, but nothing like what we've been seeing so far.
Bruce?
It's extremely rare for a 1 versus 8 matchup to be the most compelling first-round series in any playoff year. A number 8 has defeated a number 1 just 6 times in NBA history, most recently, as Ross probably remembers, in 2023, when Miami became the first play-in team to win a series, beating his Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. Miami went to the NBA Finals that year before losing to Denver. Now, with Orlando leading Detroit 2-1 heading into Monday's Game 4, the Magic could take a huge step towards knocking off the 60-win Pistons. Orlando's matched the Pistons' physicality in the first 3 games and in Game 4 as well. With all these games being kind of grinded out possessions, low-scoring totals, Jalen Duren, as World B pointed out, had been held to 9 points per game after averaging nearly 20 during his All-Star regular season. And Wendell Carter Jr., as World B also mentioned, has battled Durant and gotten the better of him. Cade Cunningham continues to play well, but you know what? He's turned the ball over 19 times in the first 3 games, and after 3 quarters in Game 4, he's turned it over 8 times, okay? So he's just not taking care of the ball, and you can give Jalen Suggs some credit for that. I mean, he's been, dogging him a lot, and that's what Jalen Suggs does. But if somehow or another Orlando finds a way to win this Game 5, which they're up 5 with 6.5 minutes left, if they can win this series, Paolo Banchero is going to deserve much of the credit, but Desmond Bane has actually made a very big impact with his aggressiveness, his swagger, his 3-point shooting. The team gave up a ton to get him prior to the season, and it's paying off finally. So with Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs playing well, look, I think Orlando's got a real chance here. They're at home. They're up by now 4 points with about half of the fourth quarter to go. We'll see what happens. I mean, we're going to be done before the game ends, but boy, oh boy, this series has been a 1 versus 8 to remember.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, and it brings back a lot of bad memories, Bruce, as you pointed out. It reminds me a lot of the Heat beating the Bucks in that first round, because believe it or not, I wouldn't be that shocked if the Orlando Magic have a chance to make it to the finals should they get through the Detroit Pistons here. I mean, next series they'd have the winners of the Celtics and Raptors, which certainly at this point might go 6 or 7 games. And I could see them knocking either of those teams off. And then they get the winner of Boston or New York potentially. So it could be a lot of fun to see how this one shakes out. But don't sleep on the Magic, because they've got a lot going for them right now.
By the way, just one thing on the Pistons, though. Let's say, for the sake of argument for this discussion, they were able to come out and pull out a series victory or whatever. We can't be all that impressed with their performance right now. No matter, even if they pull out, their offense has really been anemic in this series. Now, they've gone up against, like I said, a good defensive team, a better defensive team that we give credit for in Orlando. But still, you're the number 1 seed. You've been so impressive all season. And you offensively, they were a top 10 team offensively this season, and you've really laid a massive egg offensively in this series, win or lose. I can't imagine. There's certain teams you come out of the first round okay, we'll get through it. Now we'll get in a year. Detroit, win or lose, there's going to be a lot of questions about them going forward.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll have to keep a close eye on this series because, boy, has this one been a fun one to watch so far. All right, Bruce, time for our final thoughts here tonight.
Well, we wanted to have a little fun with our final segment as we all kind of contribute on this one. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about someone whose name doesn't really get mentioned a lot. That would be Dennis Schroeder. Okay. You guys might remember 6 Degrees of Separation. It's the theory that any two people on Earth are connected by 6 or fewer social links, meaning a friend of a friend link connects us all. Using the example, let's say, of Michael Jordan, he can be connected to basketball inventor Dr. James Naismith in just 3 links. Jordan played for Coach Dean Smith at North Carolina. Smith played for Coach Fogg Allen at the University of Kansas, and Coach Allen played for Dr. Naismith at Kansas. Now, in today's NBA, it's not so easy to connect anyone to Dr. Naismith, but Dennis Schroeder has played for so many teams and had so many connections that it is possible. It's his 13th NBA season. He's with his 11th NBA team. In order, he has played for Atlanta, OKC, the Lakers twice, the Celtics, Houston, Toronto, Brooklyn, Golden State, Detroit, Sacramento, and now Cleveland. So how do we connect Schroeder back to Dr. James Naismith in 6 Degrees? Well, here goes. Schroeder was teammates with LeBron James in LA. James worked with Pat Riley in Miami. Riles played for Coach Adolph Rupp at Kentucky. Rupp played for legendary coach Fogg Allen, who played for Dr. Naismith at Kansas almost 120 years ago. So to review, Naismith to Allen to Rupp to Riley to LeBron to Schroeder. 6 degrees of separation from Dr. Naismith to Dennis Schroeder, Ross.
Well done there, Bruce. And you would think that someone who has played for 11 teams in 13 seasons, including being traded midseason 4 different times, would not be as accomplished as Schroeder, a 32-year-old 6'1" guard. In addition to his NBA career, he has also been a top international star, winning the MVP of the 2023 FIBA tournament and again in the 2025 Eurobasket tournament for his native Germany. While his current role with the Cavs is the least prominent of his NBA career so far, would anyone be shocked to see him on someone else's NBA roster next year, making it 12 teams in 14 seasons? I wouldn't. I think he could definitely get there. And if he does, he'll go ahead and tie Ish Smith for the NBA record of playing for 13 different franchises in a career. World B, what's your thoughts on all of this with Dennis Schroeder?
Well, in looking it up, I found a couple of interesting things about it. First of all, he's not even the active leader for most teams played. That belongs to Garrett Temple, who is now on Cleveland and showing up. He played for 12 teams and has actually been in the playoffs so far in this series. So he's actually played, I think, in every game so far, albeit just a few minutes at a time. But he's there. And the other thing I noticed about Dennis Schroeder, looking it up, there's been 12 players who have played for 11 or more teams in the history of this league, and none of those players have played for the Knicks. So I don't know what that says, but I just happened to look it up. A lot of them play for the Nets now, I'll tell you that. So I mean that could be a good example of how the different franchises are historically been perceived. But that was what I found. I also found this. Dennis Schroeder once played 20-plus games for 3 different teams in the same season. That's a neat trick.
Oh, wow.
Just last year with Brooklyn, Golden State, and Detroit.
Wow. I'm trying to think of some Knicks now that off the top of my head have to be close. Like Campaign, Landry Shamet. I don't know. There's a lot of guys, but that's a crazy fun fact.
It's a lot of teams. You have to play for a lot of teams. That's over a third of the league you played for.
Yeah, very true there. Hey, my one memory of Dennis Schroeder is, back when I was with the Milwaukee Bucks, I used to pick up the draft prospects from the airport the night before their draft workouts. And Schroeder was one of the more interesting stories and pickups I ever had. I met him down at baggage claim, and he had a flipped up straight build hat, almost like Will Smith and oh gosh, what's that old school show called? I'm blanking on it. But
Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince. He looked like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air walking into the Milwaukee airport, and we get in the car, and all this guy wants to talk about is how good is the nightlife in Milwaukee. And I was like, oh boy, young man, you have a lot to learn. The nightlife in Milwaukee is not much. If that's what you're looking for, this isn't going to be the city for you. But Dave Babcock, the NBA scout for the Milwaukee Bucks, 2 years prior to Schroeder declaring for the NBA draft, kind of threw him on my radar. He knew I was always a guy that liked these high ceiling raw prospects from overseas or, collegiately. And he told me, he goes, I think I might have discovered a young international Rajon Rondo. And I got to give him credit. That's not a bad comp at the time. And of course, Dennis Schroeder, as we've pointed out here tonight, has had a heck of a career, both in the NBA and internationally. So he turned out to be a great NBA player, all things considered.
He played briefly for the Celtics a few years ago, and I was never a big Dennis Schroeder fan, but I really liked how he played when he was with Boston. He never, he was never somebody who was out there like, being a pig, when he had the ball in his hands, whatever. He played a pretty good game, and, he's, look, even though it's kind of weird to be on so many teams, what it does show is that people still want you on their team. When you become available, people want you. So that means you're bringing something to the table.
Yep. So let's keep an eye on it, World B. Maybe next year he joins the New York Knicks for his 12th different franchise.
I'll be on the edge of my seat waiting for that one.
All right. With that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week. Be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.